Keep up with Scottish football with your host, John Tonner.
So in this week's episode of the Low Ball Show, we've got a man on who has played with Queen of the South, Hearts, Dunfermline, St Mirren, Bristol Rovers, Cheltenham Town, Carlisle United, Livingston, Greenock Morton, Stenhouse-Muir, and again at Queen of the South, and currently still with Queen of the South is Gavin Reilly. Gavin, thanks for joining us today.
No problem, mate. Anytime. Thanks for having me on.
So I suppose the first question I would have, Gavin, is how's the season kind of started off?
I think it's been a wee bit mixed bag so far at the moment. I think we had a really good cup campaign. We're undefeated in our group, but we still couldn't qualify. So it was a wee bit frustrating, especially drawing against an SPL team and then going against Queen's Park away and Championship team and beating them basically. So yeah, it was a wee bit frustrating. And then in terms of the league, first game of the season was really poor. And we've been off the back of three really, really good results and then a really disappointing again result on Saturday. So it's a wee bit of a mixed bag in terms of really good highs, but then really bad lows at the same time. So yes, it's still early in the season, but it could be a lot better, but at the same time, it could be a lot worse.
Yeah, and I mean, just now as well in the season, you aren't sitting terribly when it comes to the league. So that must be a bit of a positive if you kind of still think that you should be kicking on a bit more, but you're still sitting kind of there or thereabouts.
Hindsight's a great thing in football. You look at the results that we've had and the fixtures we've had, and I think we've done really well to win them 3 games in a row. But the 2 games that we've been beat, it's worse because both of them were at home. We've actually managed to score 5 goals in them 2 games, and I think if you're saying, right, you're going to score 5 goals in 2 league home games, you're going to win it. But in the end, we've not. It's down to perhaps us not defending properly. But like you said, there's still that time to be up there come the end of the season, and we have made an all right start. It could be better, but like I said, it could be a lot worse.
And I've had kind of quite a few managers at different clubs been on, and the kind of reviews in the Viaplay Cup being so early in the season are kind of quite mixed, but a lot kind of feel it's too early. From a player's point of view that plays in it, do you really feel much of a kind of end a season, chill out, and then a good pre-season with the cup being as early as it is?
I think when I first started, so talking whatever it is, 14 years ago or whatever, it always used to be that you get 6 weeks off, then you got 6 weeks pre-season before going into, I think it was the League Cup and the Challenge Cup, the SPL Trophy, whatever it's called now, and then into your first league game. I think it's hard because like the way games are now, the intensity of games are higher. So you're going into games after a time off. Some teams, if they're playing the playoffs, they're only getting a couple of weeks off before they're then back pre-season. So you can be going straight into playing Tuesday and Saturday straight away. So yes, there is that sort of risk of injury risk in terms of it, but it is nice to have them sort of them competitive games back so early in terms of getting to play against teams that you're not usually playing against in your league. So I think there's pros and cons to everyone, I suppose. But I think in terms of having it so short, the gap in between games, and because it's not regionalised as well, teams can do a lot of travelling in between them 2 games as well. In terms of part-time teams, the guys have got work. They could be playing on Tuesday night and out of work on the Wednesday, and then having that so early in the season is maybe a damaging risk to it. But it is nice to play them sort of teams that you're not usually used to playing.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that was kind of one of the big things that a lot of the managers said was that it was more of the kind of part-time managers, I think, were kind of feeling it for their players more than anything else. And then looking through, I mean, could you personally this season, I mean, you've kind of started off and hit the milestone of 100 goals.
Yeah, I had it in the back of my mind, and obviously you don't try and concentrate on stats, but I think somebody had mentioned it to me and it was in the back of my mind. And look, I was aiming to do it this season at some point, but I was delighted to get it so early in the season, to be fair. I think to score 100 goals at any level is a great achievement. So personally, it was a nice thing to do. Obviously, winning games of football is more important, but personally, it was really nice to do that.
And it's funny you mention that, because that was one of my questions with stats and stuff. Is that something that, as a player, you look a lot into, or does it tend to be other people whispering it in your ear?
A bit of both. I think as black and white as it is, stats don't lie, do they? In terms of it's there on a piece of paper, on a computer screen, etc. So, winning games is the most important things. I think that's the bread and butter at the end of the day. That's what brings you success. But it's nice to get them personal accolades in terms of hitting milestones, appearances, hitting milestones in terms of goals. So I think any player would lie. I think a goalkeeper would lie to you if he said that he wasn't looking at how many clean sheets he'd had throughout the season, and then a striker would be lying if they told you they weren't looking at how many goals and assists they got throughout the season as well. So I think collectively it's more all about the we and getting 3 points basically and winning games. But personally, it's nice to sort of achieve them sort of milestones.
And at Queen of the South, where you're at now, I mean, it's quite a nice circle because that's where you began your career, is that right?
Yeah. Back there when I think I made my debut, scored on my debut when I was 17. I think I'm still the youngest goal scorer at Queen of the South to date. So it's nice to have that. So yeah, like you said, it was nice to go full circle, as you could say, naming the list of teams off at the start. I've played for a lot of teams now, to be fair. So up in Scotland and in England. So it was nice to come back to Queen's. Yes, last season was disappointing, but it was nice to come back, and I always wanted to come back at some stage. I think it was nice to come back at this point, and yes, last season was disappointing, but hopefully this year it can be more successful.
And just to talk about your kind of earlier career when you were first at Queen of the South, as you say, kind of youngest ever goal scorer there. What was, because I assume the kind of feelings and pressures then when you were, fresher, younger, and not as experienced, would have been much different compared to probably the pressures and expectations that you would have on you now.
You kind of, when you're a young boy, there is expectation on you because they must think you're good enough to obviously play. They get putting that trust in you to go and play at that early age, but there's sort of a freedom at the same time of it. There's a rawness because you're not used to it. Whereas now, yeah, perhaps being an older and more experienced player, there is more that expectation on your back, but it's part and parcel of being a footballer. At the end of the day, the higher up you go, the more scrutiny and pressure you're under. So it's just about using it to your advantage and being confident in your own ability to go and do that.
And then from Queen of the South, and it was kind of one of the interesting points I wanted to touch on. You moved from there, you went to Hearts in your first spell. How did that come about? Were you kind of taken aside, or was it a phone call?
Yeah, obviously I had an agent when I was playing. I had kept my agent for a long while, and he was the one that was obviously speaking to clubs at that point. And he just at the time he mentioned that Hearts were interested, and obviously a big club like Hearts are. It was nice to be attracting that sort of interest. I didn't think anything would kind of materialise. Yes, I did have a good few seasons with Queen, so perhaps the reputation was building, but I didn't expect to make that big a jump. So I met obviously Robbie Nielsen, the manager at the time, before the end of the season when things were kind of trying to get worked out, kind of like agreed personal terms with them before perhaps the end of the season. It was down because I'd come through the Queen and Self Youth team and through the academy. There was due compensation, so that was kind of the final hurdle, and thankfully that did get sorted, and I managed to sign there in the summer. So going from somewhere like Queen of the South, no disrespect to Queens, but you're going in front of playing in front of 1,500 people every week to then jumping up to sell out 16,000. It was kind of a big jump, a big, like you were saying, talking about the higher up you go, a big club, the more scrutiny and expectations on top of you. So it was a great time for me personally, but yeah, there was a lot of pressure at the same time.
And what was, as you say, with the kind of crowds and stuff, what was that like, going from the kind of, and again, as you say, no disrespect to Queens, a great club with great support, but going from that amount of support to, times in that by, kind of 10.
It was just the expectation on you, perhaps, as a team. You're expected to go and win in every game. I'm not saying that any club you're at, you're not going out to win every game, but there's just that higher demand on you in the public eye, more being in the Premiership rather than the Championship. So it was just a lot to, I think, the playing side because itself, it's all the stuff that comes with it, moving up into a bigger club. You're in, obviously, I was moved away from home for the first time as well. So it was a lot to take in terms of that side outside of football. But look, it made me the player I am today. So I've nothing but positive memories about it, to be fair.
And just to kind of touch on, because I've kind of heard from a few people that maybe played and have retired now, and you're looking back at the kind of 90s and 80s when they'd done it. But when you were saying that you had to move away from home, how was that? Was that like with like flat sharing with other players, or did you go on your own?
To begin with, I stayed with my sister for I think about 2 months. I'd bought a flat up in Edinburgh and it wasn't, because it was a new build, it wasn't quite ready. So I was house sharing with her and a now husband at the time. So it was kind of like staying at home almost, because I'd obviously been living at home for that long and then going and staying with them. It was nothing had really changed. But then you obviously get your own place and your own freedom, and it was that nice sort of grown up in terms of moving away from home, but then grown up in terms of football wise and taking that next step. So it was a lot all to take on. So it does it. I understand how players sometimes struggle when they're being younger in the terms of after living away, but it does take a time to kind of find your feet in terms of doing your own washing, cooking on your dinner and stuff like that. But no, it was just all a big part of the journey basically.
Yeah, and then and I know you had a couple of clubs. You were at Dunfermline and St Mirren after Hearts, Dunfermline loan, and you went to St Mirren. But after that, it was Bristol Rovers. And the only reason I wanted to touch on that was because I think that was the first venture down south you had. How was that? Not just kind of. I know you were older then, but not just about the moving from it's like moving to a completely different country.
It's different, obviously. It's hard to describe in terms of the Scottish game compared to the English game. I've had a couple of folk ask me about it before. It is a lot different. You've got a lot of travelling down there, basically overnight stays every second week in terms of the away games. But to begin with, it was kind of, I found it hard to find my feet in terms of moving away. At that point, at the end of that season at St Mirren, we just had my first child. My daughter was born then, so there was a lot of change in my life, and then getting the call and agreeing the deal to go down there. So I was down there myself for I think 2 months before my partner and child actually moved down with me. I was staying in a hotel to begin with, and then just in a flat on my own until my house was ready down there and they could come down. So it was a lot of change in terms of going down there and living on my own again, and then obviously playing in a different country basically. So it was all a lot to take on. Do I regret it? Not at all, because I always wanted to have a chance of playing down there, and luckily I got it. I got to play at some really good stadiums, got to play with some really, really good players and play against some really good teams. So it was just another milestone, another step in my footballing journey basically. So it's I really enjoyed that down there as well.
And just with you kind of speaking about it and the kind of few moves there, is that probably one side you would say that maybe a lot of people, like fans and things, don't see, is when you move to another club, how unsettling, in a kind of personal front with you saying about houses and places getting ready and that the first maybe month or two can be?
I think like with new players, you always got to accept that time of transition. They've come from one club to another. There's always going to be that change. Look at other times players come and hit the ground running straight away. So yeah, fans are due their own opinion. They pay to play games, and good part of the reason why the game's doing so well. But at the other side, they don't perhaps understand that it is hard. It's like anyone in terms of if you have to move away for another job, it takes you that wee bit of time to sort of find your feet, getting settled. You're meeting new folk, new people, working with new people. So it's getting to know everyone's personality. So it does perhaps take that wee bit of time transition to get going basically. So, but at the same time, it's exciting. At the same time, you go to try something new. So it's everyone's got to kind of embrace change at some point.
Yeah, and I suppose the kind of question that I was looking at is when you were at kind of Livingston when you come back over, and then you were at loan in Greenock. But then when you went back to Queen of the South, how did the kind of circle come with going back?
When I signed for Livingston in the January, and I obviously played a few games before, and then we got to the match time, and then I had a really, really bad hamstring injury. So I was out for I think close to 4 months. I missed a good bit of pre-season. When the guys came back, I wasn't back in with the squad until I think the third week of pre-season. So I was quite far behind. So Davey, the manager at the time, and still the manager now, thought it would be best to go and get the game time lower division to hit the ground running, and the view to come back in the January. So it was probably the best thing for me because I hadn't played since the March, but because the injury was that bad, and it's one of those with hamstrings in terms of sprinting and stuff, you've still got it in the back of your mind. So I think the first few months at Morton up until Christmas time, I still perhaps wasn't over that properly. So it's probably why my performances weren't great. And in the end, I ended up staying there till the end of the season. So obviously finished the season at Morton and enjoyed my time there. But I just, the deals I had on the table, the options I had on the table, it was, I think, the best one for me and my family was to go back to Queen of the South. Obviously, the travelling and stuff to training was a lot easier as well. And like I said, I've mentioned before, I was always keen to come back. So that's the reason why I chose to come back.
And have you seen, in the kind of time that you were there in the first instance to now, have you noticed kind of differences there? Is there any differences that you've noticed from back then till now?
Not in particular. Obviously, got a loyal fan base in terms of guys that are there week in, week out. Like I was saying to you, I was going from 1,500 fans to 1,600 at Hearts, but yeah, I always had that same collect. There was always that good amount of fans there every game. So I think obviously the club has had a lot of ups and downs in the last few seasons. So obviously getting relegated that season 2 seasons ago, and now obviously back in League One. So it's just about, obviously, the last season was disappointing. It's about this year, hopefully, try to get back the club where I believe it should belong. Because obviously, the first time I was there, we were kind of challenging up, made playoffs, I think, 2 years in a row in the Championship. So it'd be nice to get them back up and sort of in that area again, rather than languishing in League One where they are just now.
Yeah, and the thing is, I mean, when you look at League One now, to probably where it's ever been, is probably, I would say, one of the most competitive times. When you look at some of the teams, because Queens, I would generally say, should never be there. I think Hamilton and Falkirk probably fall within that same bracket as well.
I think the season when I was at Queen's and we won League One, we were the only full-time team in the league. Whereas you look at it now in the last few seasons, there's 3 and 4 or 5 teams that are full-time in League One, never mind in the Championship as well. So the standard of the teams has got better, but the standard of the part-time teams has also got better. So I think that's just filtered right throughout the lower leagues of Scotland now. So it's great for Scottish football, but yeah, it's a lot more challenging and difficult to achieve success in them seasons when the teams are a lot better now.
Yeah, because I think there used to be, and you'll know this playing far better than I will, but when you seen a full-time team come up against a part-time team, you could normally notice, the differences. A lot of it came around about fitness, the last kind of 20, 30 minutes. But at the weekend, I went to Stirling Albion and Hamilton. And obviously Hamilton being the full-time team, were unbeaten in the league. They went 2-0 up, but then the second half, Stirling looked like the full-time team.
Mm-hmm. I think sports science is obviously a big thing nowadays in the last 10 years. So yes, there's more training in terms of the full-time teams, but guys that are part-time are looking after themselves better now. There's more guidance and more help for them in terms of their training. Obviously, they'll do most teams are 2 nights a week, but they'll be doing, I think guys are doing a lot more in terms of out with that as well. And you'll probably hear stories and stuff like that as well, in terms of guys dropping down to part-time. The standard of the players dropping to part-time is a lot better because these guys can get better money going and playing part-time and then getting a job on the side instead of playing full-time. So I think the standard of player is helping these part-time teams as well. I think when I was in the Championship, a couple of seasons with Queens, you always kind of noticed a gap in between, like the top half, the top 5 was the full-time teams and the bottom 5 was the part-time teams. Yes, there'd be exceptions, but the majority of the times you kind of found that. Whereas now there's not. Look at Arbroath a couple of seasons ago, taking Kilmarnock right to the wire in terms of league. It's because these players, the quality of the players filtering down to these lower teams that are part-time there's more and more players doing it. So yes, it's great for the game in terms of doing this. So that's why you kind of see these teams challenging and being in the mix, so to speak, in the playoffs and at the top of the table than just the part-time teams, the full-time teams, sorry.
And just be kind of talking about that, so I suppose one of the questions I have is, what, in kind of footballing terms, what does a non-match day look like for you?
In terms of training, a lot Tuesday, we're in Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday. Thursday's our day off. So Monday's kind of like a debrief day. The guys do a training session that haven't played, and the guys that did play do more of a down day. And then Tuesday and Wednesday are sort of heavy training days in terms of distance and miles, the distance and volume into the legs in the morning, and then we're up in the gym in the afternoon for a gym session. A day off on the Thursday, but a lot of guys do a sort of active recovery on the Thursday, do some stretching, do some yoga, or go to the gym and do kind of like a light bike session. And the Friday's more the tactical kind of thing, heading into the game at the weekend, and obviously the game on the Saturday. So there's none of that. I think years ago guys would be training on a Tuesday and out on a Tuesday night, if you know what I mean. I think the professionalism of players is definitely is a lot more and higher now than what it used to be. So guys are generally looking after themselves better, they're eating better, they're training better, and training smarter as well. Obviously, a lot of the teams have got the GPS now, so the managers and sports scientists can track what you're doing, and if you need to up it a wee bit, they can tell you. If you need to kind of go down a wee bit, they can tell you that as well. So it just all that helps with preparing for the game on Saturday, basically.
And is that kind of differences, throughout your career that you're starting to see with the kind of sports science and the eating better? And, maybe and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'd imagine that your kind of earlier career, seeing whether you were in it or not, seeing guys going out after training wouldn't have been, not normal for some of them. But now have you seen that all kind of start to change?
I think it has changed a wee bit, yeah. There's obviously the old school kind of mentality is kind of going out the window a wee bit now. There is that sort of younger and vibrant feel about Scottish football at the moment. So I think it is important that you do need that spine and experience within a team, but you are seeing that older side of things now, and players are just wanting to improve. Players want to just get better. So any advice that they're kind of given, they're definitely taking it on board.
And do you think it's more PlayStations than pubs now for some of them?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of guys, as soon as they get back from training and they've done their day's work, there is a lot of them that just go in, the sort of the younger guys that go in and play the Xbox, play the PlayStation. Unfortunately, I've not got that liberty, having two young kids at home and no time for that. But yeah, once you've done your training, it's like anything. Guys like anyone that goes away and works 9 to 5. Once they've done their work, and if you've done a good day's work and done what you need to do, and the extras that you need to do, players are entitled to get their feet up. We're kind of told to do that. To be fair, they don't want guys going out sort of gallivanting the gym later on at night. You might as well, we've got the chance to do it in training, and it's watched and overseen and structured. When you get home, it's that time to rest and recuperate, because like we're saying about training well and eating right, etc., rest and sleep are just as important in terms of that. So we are encouraged to sort of have that downtime, relaxing at home to be ready for the next session or the next game.
And just around the kind of matches, the final one that I've got is on a game day. What does that look like for you in terms of what you eat and when you eat it, kind of in preparation for the game?
I am quite fussy and quite meticulous in terms of what I do on a game day. In terms of, I always eat at the same time. On a Saturday, usually at 11:45. Kind of usually it's always pasta, to be honest. Apart from that, there's not. I usually like to get a walk in the morning, take the dog out just to kind of stretch your legs. So apart from that, just about relaxing, enjoying spending time with the kids in the morning before then. Well, now spending time with the kids in the morning before then heading off. In terms of before a game, it's just, you obviously need to get your head in the game, but at the same time you need to be relaxed and ready for it, because you don't want to be going in overthinking things. You need to be, it's finding that fine balance between being ready but then not overthinking it, and then going into too relaxed at the same time.
And the other question I had on it was, with you having, as we spoke about the kind of crowd differences from where you've been, but and I'm sure you'll know this again kind of better than I do. I kind of travel about a lot of different grounds and get about at the kind of different lower league grounds that you go to. Do you find it difficult when you can hear the fans? Because if you're at, for example, like, Hearts, you're at Rangers, you're at Celtic, you're playing any of these stadiums, there's that many there that it would probably shut out from individual shouting. But round about these grounds, you can hear it a lot more.
Some of the time it's quite funny when you hear some of these shouts, and you can actually, it's like one man and his dog almost, and that one guy shouting at you. But no, not particular. As players, and especially from opposition fans, you are going to come under that sort of football banter. It's just as long as it doesn't cross the line, it's all part and parcel of the job basically. So no, you've just got to. Every game's important as the next. As they say, every game's a cup final. Anyone could be watching in terms of scouting basically. So you've just got to go into every game. And yes, there'll be times at games. I think the best in terms of a story that I've got in terms of a story like that is it's when I was at Queen's in the season that Rangers, Hibs and Hearts were in the season in the championship that season. We played Rangers. It was at Palmerston. It was a Friday night. I think there was 8,500. It was live on the telly, and we beat them 2-0. So the place is going from rocking and bouncing. We beat them that week. The next week we played Cowden Beef at home. As I was saying, went back to that 1,500 fans. You walked out and you could hear a pin drop, and we got beat 2-1. So you're going from that mega high of having 8,500, the motivation to like go and play in that game in front of all them fans, and then going a week later and playing back in front of 1,500. It was kind of like a massive drop. But no, I'm lucky enough. I think I've only got 3 grounds to go in the whole of the period. Two to go now actually, because I played at Cove at the start of the season. So it is nice to sort of play at all these different grounds. It's sort of just a different type of atmosphere basically, but you've just got to kind of try and block that out in terms of them playing, because at the end of the day, every game's there to be won. You need to go and win it if it's in front of 50,000 folk or 100 folk.
And I suppose because you brought it up, I feel the need to ask, what are the other grounds?
Stirling Albion is one I've not got and played that competitively, so I'll get that this season. Touch wood, I'm not injured. And the other one is Spartans, now that they got newly promoted. So hopefully before I retire, I get to tick Spartans off as well.
And do you know what I would say, and this was a kind of big surprise to me, was so I went over to Spartans and I seen them against Rovers in the playoff, and the setup just shocked me as to how good it was.
Yeah, I think you look at East Kilbride this year, this infrastructure in the stadium and etc. that they've got there. These lower league, I'm a big advocate in terms of I don't believe the pyramid system is fair at the moment. You could be the team that finishes bottom of the League Two, lose every game of the season, not win one game. You then go into the playoff and still not win a game. You could draw both games, but you win on penalties and you get to stay up. There's a lot of these teams in the Lowland League, the Highland League, even the West League that are better run and better equipped and better supported than teams in League Two. So I do believe there has to be some sort of change, because like you said, in terms of you bringing up Spartans, there's a reason why they've got promoted in the end, because they're doing things right behind the scenes. And it's attracting players to go and play there, basically. I think there needs to be a sort of a change in terms of the way it's structured, to be honest.
And this was something that I found out recently from a guest I'd on. The video's not went out yet from them, but just for you talking about that, do you know, and you may because of the position you're in, but this was absolute news to me, that if you win the Highland League or the Lowland League and don't get promoted, you get no money for winning that league.
Guys, when at the end of the day, you go out to win your league. If you win every game and win your league, you need to be rewarded. At the end of the day, what's the point of doing it? So, yeah, that's it's interesting to hear, to be fair. And like you said, it's mind-boggling, basically. But I'm not the one that makes the decision. That's just my own opinion of it, to be fair. So,
no, do you know, as I say, and just be you kind of talking about pyramid. I think it's good in the sense of wanting to bring other teams in, teams that have got great setups, but I still kind of personally think, and I think a lot of the guests have done and stuff, are all kind of very along the lines of it's got to be looked at a bit more. It's not kind of right yet, but the basis behind it's probably correct in bringing other teams in.
Yeah, I think so. Is it perhaps you have the SPL, Premiership, and then a bigger League Two, League One, etc. I don't know. It's up to the guys at the top to sort of make them decisions, but I think it's got to kind of be looked at more, to be honest, because like I said, there's no justice in that. There's no, how can you win every game of a season and then not get rewarded for it, but then you can lose every game and win a penalty shootout and be rewarded for that? It just doesn't make sense, doesn't add up.
I think it's the only league, as you say, in the world that you could lose every game. and still be rewarded.
Yeah, I know. So, yeah.
But just kind of finally, I really do appreciate the time that you've took with us today, Gavin. In terms of this season, where do you see kind of personally and Queen's being come the end of the season? If we were sitting down end of the season, where would you be happy of the kind of journey I took you throughout the season?
I think we need to. I think as a full-time club and the players that we've got at the club, we know what we're capable of. So I think there's no reason why we can't be successful through the end of the season. I think the first milestone is to go and actually win the league. I don't think there's any reason why we can't be up there challenging for that. But obviously, if that first one we don't achieve that, I think then you've obviously got to be then aiming for the playoffs. But I think we've got to be aiming big. Last season was disappointing and we missed out on that. So I think we have to be positive and believe that we are good enough, which I think we are. So I think we just need to be aiming for that. Yes, it's going to be hard. It's hard to win any league. So we've obviously got to take it game by game. Like I was speaking about before, we've made a good start. Yes, it could be better, but like you said, it could be a lot worse. So we've just got to take it game by game. Personally, I think made a pretty good start. I think that's 6 goals in 9 games in all competitions. So first and foremost, I think I need to be aiming for double figures, and then after that, I think I just need to be aiming as high as I can. But ultimately, as a club and personally, I think we need to be aiming for promotion.
Yeah, I mean, definitely been. When I was kind of looking through it at the beginning of the season, I kind of definitely thought that you would be thereabouts come the end of the season. And with the way it started, I kind of see no reason why you wouldn't be there or thereabouts.
Yeah, I think obviously the first 5 games we've had, we've now got a break from that. We've got the cup game next weekend, a cup that I personally won. So I think it's important that we take it seriously and clubs take it serious, basically, because at the end of the day, guys could go the whole career and never win any silverware. I think it's important when you're given that chance to go and compete for something, you have to go and try and win it. So we'll go into that game, and then we've got two tough games after that in terms of Falkirk away and Hamilton at home. But if we're wanting to be successful and be up there come the end of the season, we've got to be looking to win them sort of games. So they'll be tough games, but we're looking forward to them.
And Gavin, as I say, finally, I really appreciate you coming on. Really appreciate you taking the time. The final question I've got, you'll be pleased to hear, is not football related.
Right.
So if there was to be a film made about your life and you could pick anybody to play you, who would you pick?
Ryan Gosling.
Ryan Gosling, I think that's a great shout. I actually thought you were about to say Ryan Reynolds, and I was going to say he's a bit too old, right enough.
Perhaps.
Look, Gavin, all the best with the season ahead.
Appreciate that, thank you.
Fantastic start, kind of personally, for the milestone you hit. And I'll definitely be down at Queen's. In fact, the last time I was over there for a game was in your first spell as manager. As a player there.
Right, okay.
Was the last time I was there. And I mean, that was, I think we'll both agree, probably a few more years than we'd like to remember.
Yeah.
But this season I've kind of made the point of going about, so I'll definitely be down there probably before the end of the year, and really looking forward to it.
Yeah, no problem, mate. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate you asking me to come on, basically.
I appreciate you coming on, and as I say, all the best with the rest of the season.
Thanks very much, mate. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.